the 1950s, a black child's first lesson in America often came not from books, but from boundaries. Boundaries that were invisible to the eye, but as solid as any brick wall. You could feel them in the way your mother's hand tightened when you walked into a store. You could see them in the signs that told you which water fountain you could drink from. You could hear them in the way a bus driver's voice dropped when he told you to move to the back. This wasn't the America in the school textbooks. This was the America you lived in. Back then, the denial of basic things wasn't just about money. It was about design. Libraries in black neighborhoods were stocked with outdated books. Parks were scarce or unsafe. A new housing development might be built in your town, but the price tag or a carefully crafted zoning law would keep your family out. Swimming pools were the pride of suburban summers, but if you were black, the closest you might get was a hot, cracked asphalt street with a garden hose spraying mist. In school, the separate but equal promise was a cruel joke. Desks were broken, chalk was scarce, and teachers dedicated but exhausted fought to educate with what little they had. The state might build a gleaming white school across town, but your classroom would be in a building that smelled of mildew when it rained. Opportunity was a door often locked before you even knew it existed. The 1950s America, for black families, was not a land of equal dreams. It was a daily balancing act between dignity and danger. You learned early to speak carefully, to dress better than you could afford, to carry yourself with a quiet pride that the world might never acknowledge. Sundays in church were not just about worship, they were about survival. They were about holding on to hope in a world that told you not to have any. But even in that time of constraint, something unbreakable grew. A pride that could not be legislated out of existence. Communities built their own businesses, raised their own leaders, and passed down a fire in the spirit that whispered, "You are worth more than this world will admit." That fire would become the backbone of the civil rights movement. And while the 1950s tried to teach black Americans to know their place, they were already charting a course to redefine it. Fast forward 75 years. The signs on the water fountains are gone. The buses are desegregated, and the schools are on paper open to all. There are black billionaires, black mayors, black astronauts, and the first black president is now part of history books. But listen closely, and you'll hear the echoes. The architecture of inequality never truly vanished, simply changed its form. In 2025, you can walk into any store you choose. But in many cities, the stores in black neighborhoods still carry less, cost more, and close earlier. Grocery deserts stretch across zip codes, where fresh produce is harder to find than a fast food chain. The swimming pools are open now, but public ones are scarce, replaced by private clubs with annual fees that quietly fence out entire communities. Schools no longer carry the legal stamp of segregation, but a child's quality of education still depends heavily on their zip code. A black student in a low-income district might sit in classrooms with outdated tech, while just a few miles away, another school enjoys virtual reality labs and cutting-edge STEM programs. The funding gap wears a new mask, but the pattern feels familiar. Employment laws promise equality, yet the wage gap between black and white workers remains stubborn. Interviews are held in glass-paneled offices instead of back rooms. But studies still show that ethnic-sounding names get fewer callbacks. Housing discrimination is no longer written into law, but credit scores, appraisal bias, and gentrification draw new, quieter lines on the map. And while smartphones have given everyone a camera, the images captured in the past decades, knees on necks, hands raised in surrender, tears streaming down faces remind us that some dangers remain the same. The fight for dignity has moved into boardrooms, courtrooms, and hatchacks, but the stakes have not changed. The right to live fully, freely, and safely. Yet, in 2025, there is also a new kind of pride. Black entrepreneurs are building tech companies from scratch. Artists are commanding global audiences without the filter of a gatekeeper. Neighborhood gardens grow where empty lots once stood. Black voters have shifted elections, and young activists armed with history and digital platforms are not just asking for change, they're demanding it. It is a world where barriers are no longer as visible but their weight is still felt. And so, the same fire that burned in the 1950s continues to burn. Now only this time, it is fueled by the knowledge that change is not only possible, but inevitable. If the fight continues, when you place the 1950s beside the 2025s, the contrasts are striking, yet the similarities are sobering. In the 1950s, injustice was written in plain ink. It was shouted from pulpits of hate, carved into law books, and nailed into signs. In 2025, injustice whispers. It hides in algorithms, in policy fine print, in real estate appraisals, and school district lines. The chains are lighter, but they are still chains. But here is the truth history tries to tell us. Progress is not a straight road. It is a winding path, paved by those who refuse to accept the limits of their time. The black elders who stood in sweltering heat for the right to vote could never have imagined their grandchildren swiping a phone to register. And yet, they would recognize the struggle behind every headline about voter suppression. The young activists of today, tweeting in real time from protests, carried the same determination as those who marched in Selmonelli. The terrain has changed. The differences between these two Americas are many. In the 1950s, media could ignore your story. In 2025, your voice can reach millions in minutes. In the 1950s, your choices for survival were limited. In 2025, your opportunities are greater, but so are the systemic obstacles that must be navigated. In the 1950s, entire generations dreamed of basic freedoms. In 2025, the dream is equality without qualifiers. And yet, when you look closely, the thread that ties these eras together is resilience. The refusal to surrender humanity in the face of a country that has too often withheld it. The pride in culture, language, music, and tradition that has not only survived but shaped America itself. The insistence on telling the truth even when the truth is uncomfortable, because silence has never been a luxury. We stand today on a bridge built by those who came before, looking toward a horizon they fought to make possible. The view is wider now, the sky is brighter, but the journey is not over. And perhaps that is the most important difference of all. In 1950, survival was the goal. In 2025, the goal is nothing less than full belonging, full equality, and full humanity. This is not just a story of differences between 2 centuries. It is the story of a people who have carried themselves with dignity across them. And in that dignity lies the unshakable belief that America can and must be better.